Welcome to the show. Welcome to Friday. Happy Halloween. Hope you're having a great day. It is the end of October, and we sit on the precipice of another Notre Dame football game. The Fighting Irish at Boston College tomorrow afternoon, a 3:30 kickoff, and you can hear it right here on Sports Radio WSBT, the Notre Dame Radio Network, and the Odyssey app, AUDACY. And our coverage here on this station begins with the game day show from 11 a.m. to 2:30 tomorrow Eastern Time. Join Tim Ground, Jimmy Rosari, Eric Hansen, Tyler Horka, and the welcome guests, Capron Lewis Moore, Josh Lugg, and Mark Edwards as well, all former Notre Dame football players. So that's from 11 to 2:30 Eastern Time tomorrow. You can find it streaming on the Sports Radio WSBT app. Of course, you can listen to it on Sports Radio WSBT. And then the game kicks off at 3:30. How are you today, Mr. Jesse Stiers?
I'm doing well. It's Friday. It's Halloween. The wife is making a lot of treats for Halloween, and I'm going to make a Halloween dinner for us. So,
will you have many trick-or-treaters like at your place? No trick-or-treaters? Is that kind of disappointing?
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing. I think it kind of takes the fun out of Halloween because obviously, we had an opportunity to go to a party, but I'm just kind of being lame this year. I didn't want to dress up. Plus, we got back from the honeymoon, and then we had that wedding immediately that weekend, and then last weekend I was in a wedding. So I really just don't want to do a lot this weekend, to be honest with you. So I didn't want to get dressed up. I didn't want to go, be around people who there's a couple people who I really want to see, and then the rest is I really could care less about the rest of you. So maybe that's just being,
you came here to be with all your friends instead. The Irish on Sports Radio WSB.
Exactly. And then, our neighborhood is kind of right on the edge of where trick-or-treaters go and don't go. So, a street or two the other direction are really nice houses so that, they know they're going to get candy. I think our street has a history of just people who don't really, pass out candy too much. So we don't get many trick-or-treaters.
That seems to kind of follow you around because our old neighborhood where we lived in South Bend, the neighborhood in general got a pretty fair amount of trick-or-treaters, but it was mostly a couple blocks over where the heavy traffic was. Our block was one of the least traffic blocks in the area. And where I live right now, we get nothing because we're out on a highway now. So.
Yeah, no kid is walking along the highway with their candy bag.
I hope not.
Did you hear Vince takes a tariff off of his kids' candy?
I'm not surprised.
He gets first dibs on all the good candies that he likes. So he's always taking their Three Musketeers, their Kit Kats.
Good old Vince, man. Handing out the Halloween toll, man.
I wouldn't be surprised if Vince recycles candy. He hands out the candy that his children bring home.
Oh yeah, he's recandying the candy.
Yes.
Yeah.
He sends his kids out in waves. He's like, all right, you go get the first batch and then bring that back so I can hand it out.
Brian Driscoll told me there was no Notre Dame football recruiting stuff to talk about tonight, so he won't be on the show. We're predominantly, it's been home game weekends that he's come on Fridays, but I think it was just an excuse because he and his wife were more wound up about handing out the candy to kids in their neighborhood. So they were
upset. I think it's really funny how there's some people, and maybe this is most things, but I feel like there's people who are really into Halloween, and then there's people who are like, yeah, well, it's Halloween.
Just another day.
Yeah.
Just kind of, that's what it is for me. That's what it's always been.
I will say, though, last night, Naomi kind of made me a little sad because she said, I used to get so excited about Halloween. I would make my own costumes every year and all this stuff. And I said, oh, when did that stop? She's like, 2021. I was like, oh, so ever since you've known me?
The tradition just died. You need to get her back in the Halloween spirit. Next year, you need to do maybe do something for Halloween. It'll be on a Saturday. So
I guess so.
All right. Well, Notre Dame, Boston College tomorrow. We've got plenty to talk about with that. We've got Notre Dame hockey coming up, so a little bit of a short show tonight. We'll be out of here at 6:40 tonight, but we have rapid fire in the second hour. Bobby Hensley is going to grace us with his presence, so we'll see just how far rapid fire goes once Bobby bops into the studio here tonight. So
grace is a word choice.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, kind of one thing we don't know about this game tomorrow is who's going to start at quarterback for Boston College because Bill O'Brien, he won't say who's going to start. He's kind of playing coy a little bit. Is it going to be Dylan Lonergan, who opened the season as their starter? Is it going to be Grayson James, who started the last 2 games, losses to UConn and Louisville? Marcus Freeman was asked about those 2 quarterbacks at his Zoom tomorrow. I held this out on you guys yesterday so we could use it today.
I think both do really a good job of executing their offensive game plan. Each week, it kind of changes just because, I think the Coach O'Brien and their OC do a really good job of trying to attack what you're going to see defensively. The biggest difference is going to be the intentional run game, the quarterback run game that they do with the guy James has been starting the past 2 weeks. You see more called QB runs. Will he pull it and scramble and do those things? Yes, but Lonergan can do those things also. But that's probably the biggest difference. There's a lot more called QB run game in the last 2 weeks with James than you saw earlier in the year.
So more QB runs. He does bring a little bit more mobility. Do you think it's going to matter, Jesse, who Boston College starts ultimately?
I don't think it matters, and I think this is actually just a funny move by Coach O'Brien. You've heard him talk about their worry about Notre Dame's run game all week, and then now they're not going to name a starting quarterback. I truly believe it means something to him, right? He understands kind of that this is the Holy War, and it is Notre Dame and Boston College. So I think he's trying to get every advantage that he can as possible. But at the end of the day, it really shouldn't matter. And I don't think it'll matter because Notre Dame has played more mobile quarterbacks like Texas A&M and Arkansas, as well as better passing quarterbacks like USC and Miami. So this defense has seen much more athleticism and just much better, quarterbacks in general than what Boston College is going to present. So I'm not overly worried about it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, James, they might do more design quarterback runs, but he's got 31 carries. And obviously, don't forget, in college football, a sack is included as a carry, and he's been sacked 9 times. So even as, their quote unquote running mobile quarterback, he's still been sacked 9 times, which is only 1 less than Lonergan. And Lonergan has played not quite twice as much, but he's played, a lot more than Grayson James, and he's been sacked 10 times. So they've both been sacked a lot. James only has 61 net rushing yards. He's only averaging 2 yards per carry. So, their offense, at least as the last couple of weeks compared to the 2 or 3 games before that, they've at least scored a little bit more with James in there. But they, look, let's be honest. They've still lost 7 straight games, and their defense has given up a lot of points. Lonergan is the better completion percentage guy, but more than half of his 132 completions are within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So it's very short, check down screens and those kind of things. 73 of his completions are to the middle of the field as well. And James has a lot that goes to the middle of the field. That's where 2 of his 3 interceptions have been. He can stretch the field a little bit more. Again, when you look at number of passes, he's gone deep, at a little bit higher rate than Lonergan has. Lonergan can also throw it deep, but I think, James, just in terms, again, of percentages, has thrown deep a little bit more often, much lower completion percentage. And he's also a guy who's been around the block. This is his 5th year. So it's not like this is a young guy with a ton of upside in front of him. So I don't really see much benefit either way for Boston College, regardless of where they go. And I'd be shocked, honestly, if maybe we don't even see both of them tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I just think Notre Dame has to focus on their fundamentals and technique. And like Marcus Freeman said, he hasn't said, but I know he likes to say, when you're going against different quarterbacks, potentially just don't get caught up of playing football. Just play football, use your fundamentals, use your techniques, play with some instincts. And I think everything else will take care of itself.
Excuse me. Paulo came in hot with a request. He's expecting whiteboard from you today, Jesse. Not sure if Jesse obliged. Did you whiteboard out any Halloween plans or anything like that you can share?
Not today. I could, though. I don't know if you've seen this on the internet, the big topic of conversation the last day. is whether or not you can beat quarters coverage over the top. I don't know if you've been seeing all that drama, but
I have not. So where does this stem? What are we talking about? I've missed out on this quarters coverage drama.
Yeah, so Mina Kimes was on, I can't remember what it was on. I think it was whatever she does with Dan Orlovsky. I think like
NFL Live, probably something like that.
Something like that. And she was talking about how, there's like the deep post, or you can get vertical to beat quarters. And then I don't know if you've seen that guy. He's the coach from Last Chance U, that Netflix show. He's kind of a crazy, deranged, I think his name's like Jason Brown or something, Coach JB or something. And then he just started coming at her, of course, saying she doesn't know football and all this stuff. And, that's not how you would beat quarters. And so now everyone's, weighing in on it and talking about how you beat quarters coverage. So
I'm curious where our Orlovsky stood in all of this. Like, was he part of this discussion? Like, was he on Mina's side? Was he on Last Chance U side?
Of course he's on Mina's side. And the thing is of course this guy like calls her out over like Twitter or something. It's like, yes, Mina Kimes on ESPN has no idea what she's talking about when talking about football. But it's just, how people blow up or get, all infatuated with something on the internet. And that's what it was the last couple of days. So I just wanted to joke about it.
Right. I got you. Yeah, somehow I missed all of that though.
You were a busy guy. Basketball was playing yesterday.
That is very true. Basketball last night, and I came home, and I actually it was like insomnia night. I could not fall asleep last night. Literally.
Must have just been the vibrations from the basketball arena.
I don't know. I started watching Step Brothers, and I was like getting the, like heavy eyes. So I'm like, okay, I'll go to sleep. I'll record Step Brothers so I can finish watching it later. So then I tossed and turned for about an hour, and then I woke back up, and I had Seven. Have you ever seen the movie Seven with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman?
I don't think so.
It's from around the time you were born, like 30 years ago, but it's a really good, like, I don't even know what you'd call it, suspense, kind of movie. There's some gore. It's like a serial killer based on the 7 deadly sins. And so I'm like, okay, I'll put on 7. And at some point, my eyes are going to get heavy again and I'll fall asleep. 2 hours later, got all the way through 7. I'm like, man, that was really good. It's been a long time since I've seen that. That was really good. But then finally managed to fall asleep somewhere around 3:15, I think, last night.
You sound like one of my old roommates, Carson, in college. I'd come out of the bedroom at like 2 a.m. to grab like some water. And here he'd be just watching some random movie on Netflix and be like, this is a great movie. I couldn't go to sleep.
That's how it was. What's in the box? What's in the box? Classic line at the end, Brad Pitt. Okay, Jess. Notre Dame BC tomorrow. What's the thing that you most need to see from the Fighting Irish?
I need to see Notre Dame exert their will on both sides of the ball. And then not only exert their will, but just never let up. Like, I want this to be one of those games where, and I think that they've been doing this, of recently, but a lot of these really good teams that you see year in and year out, or teams that you think have good aspirations in the playoffs, they win these games like 60-2, 60-3, 60-7. You know what I mean? Like, that's the type of game I'm looking for. Is Notre Dame just needs to come out and treat this like a FCS D1 AA team, just because Boston College is bad. Like, I'm just going to say it. They're not a good football team. Bill O'Brien's in his first year. I get it. He's trying to get things turned around, but this is a bad team, and you need to treat them. Sorry, year 2. You need to treat them like you just don't care. Like you should have no hard feelings about coming in here and potentially putting up 70 points.
Yeah, it's like you look at Bill O'Brien at Boston College and Fran Brown at Syracuse, and they both had, fairly successful first seasons, and there's all this hope, and especially for Fran Brown, once they beat Clemson early on, then just like with LSU, it's like, yeah, well, how good is that? Well, tell you what, Boston College has nothing that resembles a win over Clemson on their resume. Since beating Fordham to open up the season 66-10, it has been all downhill from there with losses to Stanford, losses, they got just hammered by Pitt. They got thumped by Clemson. UConn beat them. And when UConn's beaten Boston College, from like that aspect in that part of the world, those are bad days. That's like a budding little rivalry out there, and that's huge for UConn, and it is not good for Bill O'Brien and Boston College by any stretch. But I'm with you. Like, I need offensive line, defensive line domination. That's what I need to see in this game, like assert wills and all those different kind of things. And sometimes these games, I think that there's an expectation that, by some people that from the first snap, it's supposed to be 45-0, right away. And that doesn't happen. Of course, people start panicking and stuff like that. So, I'm not saying from the jump, it just needs to be total Notre Dame domination and Boston College guys are going flying like bowling pins and that kind of thing. But like, especially down in the trenches, this is a game where Notre Dame needs to assert its authority and just show who they are to basically little brother Boston College.
Yeah, and I'm pretty wounded by this because I watch the Dallas Cowboys play every week. But, this last week was just, amongst other things, just the pre-snap penalties. I just don't want to see Notre Dame shoot themselves in the foot and have to deal with, you get into a nice 2nd and 2, and then you get a pre-snap procedural penalty. That's the stuff, like the pre-snap penalties, to me, is a team that is, sleepwalking, not all mentally there. They know that they can, their physical ability is enough, but you don't want to see those dumb penalties. Just be clean throughout the entire game.
I think maybe Mitch Cumstein, a newcomer to the show in the YouTube chat, just gave himself away. I don't see Terry Silver in here, interestingly enough, today.
But where did Terry go?
Jesse said the magic word, the Dallas Cowboys, and Mitch Cumstein put up a shot glass in the YouTube chat. Okay. Mitch DK Cumstein. All right, there we go. There we go. What's your biggest confidence in this game for the Irish?
Yeah, I think you kind of were hinting at this a little bit, might have beat me to it, but I'll kind of say it all together here. I think CJ Carr getting back on track and dominating through the air is what I'm most confident about. Boston College has talked about, the ability to stop the run all week. I think they're going to overemphasize that. They're going to do the opposite of what USC should have done. I think they're really going to overload the box, and I think they're going to say, hey, CJ Carr, if we're going to go down, we're going to go down by you beating us through the air. And I think he's going to do it. I think this is a good – he hasn't been great the last couple games, and that's why I'm saying I think he gets back on track. I think we see some of that sharpness in the passing game, and I think that CJ Carr is going to dominate through the air and really carry this team to the victory.
I think so as well. Yeah, they'll look at that USC film and they'll see the mistake that USC made, but it's like, okay, let's just play two deep safeties for 90% of the game and see where that gets us. And obviously it didn't get them very far. So it's like, okay, you took away some of the deep stuff and, kind of listening, seeing some of the comments that CJ Carr made this week. I still think that, like USC was just in his head a little bit in terms of like what he was seeing versus what he thought,
and I was telling you that before the game too. Like that was the segment Saban did where USC was kind of tricking some of those younger, which is smart. And I think, like you said, he was just a little bit in his head of just not, completely trusting himself.
Yeah, exactly. And okay, if Boston College decides they're going to load up and take away Notre Dame's running game, CJ Carr might have 300 yards by halftime. Like that's just the way it's going to go. And especially when you're talking about, because we're not talking about college football playoff level teams or even mid-tier power four teams. Like the teams that they're going to be playing starting with this week they're going to have to pick some kind of poison. They're not going to be able to defend both. So if they start out saying we're going to load up, CJ Carr is going to have to beat us. He's going to do that a few times, and then they're going to try to loosen it up a little bit, probably play the safeties back once again, and then at that point, Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price take over, especially since they would, have the lead at that point. I think it's just a no-win game, and you end up chasing your tail if you're an opposing defensive coordinator against the, this quarterback, that offensive coordinator, that offensive line, those receivers, and those running backs. It's a complete pick your poison, and none of these defenses, like when you're starting off with a defense that's given up over 34 points a game and, over they're not in the top 100 in terms of yards per play or pass efficiency defense. It's just a bad matchup for Boston College, and I think CJ Carr is going to make him pay. They're giving up 163 yards a game on the ground and 247 through the air. Those are averages, and none of the teams that they've played have been as good as Notre Dame's offense. It's just a horrible matchup for Boston College.
Yeah, it's not good at all.
Yeah. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll have more. We'll continue to look at this Notre Dame BC game, and in a little bit, we will also talk a little bit about Notre Dame women's basketball's exhibition win over Purdue Northwest last night, a resounding exhibition victory with the regular season opener coming up next Wednesday. So we'll take a break, and then more Notre Dame BC coming up next. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. Along with Jesse Stiers, I'm Sean Stiers. Jesse getting called out by Tommy Guns in the YouTube chat. He says, you're big slacking on the whiteboard this season. He says, psst, that is your best impact on the show. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I had some time off. It's been a rough season in terms of, getting my
like marriage week and then honeymoon for 2 weeks. Like next Tuesday, like maybe slotting in a little whiteboard next week.
Yeah, I think that
you can take off the radio crowd when you do that.
I forgot about that too. We got the nasty radio pushback on that one.
Right.
No, it's and I hate to say this as well, but it's not super exciting to get into a whiteboard for a week like Boston College. I can't wait for a playoff whiteboard.
See some good stuff against BC. Drop a couple things, that kind of thing next week.
Hopefully we see some improvement in a couple areas, and then that way we can highlight them and say, yeah, this was really good.
Sly Fox in the YouTube chat says he hasn't seen you in a while. Just wants to say congrats on the marriage. Wishing you all.
Thank you.
Very nice. Very nice. Wade Garrett says, I know what I don't need to see, and that's a Cowboys hat. Jesse has his Cowboys hat on tonight. Nothing wrong with that. I went with my old school. You can't even tell. This is my Four Horsemen sweatshirt, my old school Four Horsemen sweatshirt. All right, Notre Dame, BC. We talked about our biggest confidence. What's your biggest concern in this game?
Yeah, my biggest concern would be the defense giving up chunk plays. I think we need to be out of that stage completely. We don't need to see big chunk plays against Boston College. But most importantly, I know this might sound a little lame, but I'm really concerned with the offense still force-feeding run plays in short downs, because I think they're going to get to some short downs. And I just like them to see it be a little bit more creative. Like, when's the last time they did a nice little, maybe like play action on 3rd and 1 and hit Eli Raridan on a flat, or maybe, like that typical kind of like Sean McVay play where the motion goes one way, you fake a handoff, and then like the tight end like sneaks into the flat, and it seems to be wide open every time.
Minimal creativity, but maximum output, it seems like most.
Yeah, like it seems like that play always works. That's what I just want to see. Is just like, let's not just jam Jeremiah Love on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. Like let's be a little creative yet effective, I guess is maybe the best way to put it.
This is where I am. It's the short yardage, like I don't know, but like it seems to rear its head in the deep red zone these days, because they end up with like 1st and goal around the 10 most of the time, it seems like, and you have to get a touchdown. Like I've always said, 1st and goal right at the 10 is the worst place to be tackled. Like if you're going to get tackled, at least get tackled at the 12-yard line, so you have another opportunity to get a first down before the end zone. But that seems like it's where it's rearing its head. So you end up with like, 4th and goal at the 2, those kind of things. Again, against a team like this and a defense like this, this is the kind of opponent where you can start to solve some of these short yardage situations. So I don't want to see them struggling against this Boston College defense, which again is not good. I don't want to see them struggling in those short yardage situations. And that's kind of my concern, whether it's red zone or, 3rd and short, 4th and short type stuff. We need to see a little bit better play calling and much better execution, whatever it happens to be. But again, I don't think any of us are in favor of just bringing more tight ends on the field. And,
unless you get creative with them.
What's that?
Unless you get creative with them. Like I saw last night, like Mark Andrews was taking some direct snaps. Like what about, Eli Raridan getting behind there and taking a shotgun snap and then just having some lead blockers? Like, just show me you're thinking outside of the box. Like, I just don't want to see Jeremiah Love in Wildcat take the direct snap and then he goes. Like, if Jeremiah Love's in Wildcat, maybe we got a little 2-back out there. Maybe, just switch it up. Just do some different things.
Justin Kane says, by the way, perhaps whiteboard some red zone offense. That would be good. Like, we'll see what comes of this week between red zone and short yardage. Maybe that can be something that you focus on in this game, Jess. And then next Tuesday, we can talk about what we see or didn't see in terms of that kind of stuff. I think that's our key point. I think you nailed it, with all the whiteboard talk. I think that's what we can focus on.
I'll keep my antennas out for this game.
What would be the thing that would surprise you the most if it happens in this game?
Boston College scoring more than 20 points. I don't think it's a game where they should score 20 points. You've seen like some of the scores against, like, I think Pittsburgh beat them like 48-5. Clemson beat them like 41-10.
I don't think it was 5, but I think it was 7. Yeah,
7. Sorry, that's what I meant. I meant 7. But that's like, I want to see Notre Dame's defense truly be in its element, and I would be surprised if this accumulation of talent that is called the Boston College offense scores more than 20 points.
BC only averages 3.3 yards per carry, and their best running back, a guy, by the way, how's this for a name? Turbo Richard.
Nice.
Great name for a running back. Turbo Richard. Couple of different ways that you could read that, but he has a shoulder injury. He has a shoulder injury, and they're only averaging 3.3 yards per carry, even with him. And Notre Dame's only allowing 3.2 per carry. So I can't see, like, I would be shocked if BC is
ran the ball,
hitting explosive plays and running the ball and really, moving the ball down the field against this Notre Dame defense.
Turbo Richardson sounds like he would be related to Mitch Kumstein.
That's a good call.
They might know each other.
But I mean, look, BC is also, like 7 interceptions between the 3 quarterbacks, sacked 21 times, 7 fumbles as well. They don't take care of the ball. So, I would be shocked if Notre Dame, ends up like negative turnover margin and that kind of thing. This is an opponent that you just need, especially you're coming out of a bye. You just need to come out and flat out whip. Like, are you worried at all about Notre Dame in terms of you've been off for 2 weeks, fall break, with, any rust, hangover after beating USC a couple of weeks ago, or does any of that kind of thing concern you in this game?
I don't get worried about the rust. I actually expect them to be really well rested, and hopefully play with more burst and more energy. I want to see them just get out of their routes quicker, get out of their cuts quicker, explode into their tackles on defense. So, bye weeks coming from a player's perspective really aren't fun unless you're injured and it gives you that extra week to kind of recover and get back out there. Like, bye weeks are boring and you're just kind of sitting there. You're like, I want to go out there and play, and so I hope that they use that kind of amped up, pent up energy and come out more well-rested and really kind of pop, I want to see more explosion out of them.
28.5-point favorites, winners cover. Do you think they cover this game?
I do think that they cover. I would take them all the way up to 30 points, to be honest with you.
I agree. I'm kind of in that ballpark as well because I'm with you. I don't see BC scoring. I think 13 is my max for BC, and it feels fairly generous. But there's just enough lingering, like how good is this defense kind of thing. Could BC, luck into a big play or two against Notre Dame's defense. But, in terms of, that's 4+ touchdowns. I like Notre Dame quite a bit there. The over-under is 56.5. I'm feeling the over just because I think Notre Dame is going to be very close to that by themselves unless they really take their foot off the pedal in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, the over-under actually scares me a little bit just because I think Notre Dame could very easily put up 50 points, but I just don't know what you're going to get out of Boston College, right? Like, they might not bring any juice to that line at all. And so I would stay away from it and just take the Cowboys over because I feel like that's what the over-under that hits just about every game. But no, in all seriousness, I trust the spread way more than I trust the over-under in this game.
I would agree with that for sure. CJ Carr's passing yards total is 231.5 on a scale of 1 to 10. What's your confidence in the over before halftime?
So before halftime is a little bit of a stretch for me. I would put that as like a 5 out of 10. So like, 50-50 chance to toss up. But I would definitely say 10 out of 10 by the end of the game. I'm almost willing to take this up to 250 and maybe even 275. And if you wanted to get like, have some real fun, maybe even 300. You look at some of the guys that their recent stats against this Boston College defense. Pittsburgh's quarterback put up 320. Klubnik from Clemson put up 280. The UConn quarterback put up 360. And again, in a game where I expect Boston College to really be heavy in the box, I would definitely take CJ Carr at 250. I think 230 is way too low.
I'm a 7.5 that he hits this before halftime, especially if BC plays Notre Dame the way you're talking about, which I think that they will. I think that they're going to be scared to death of having Love and Price run all over them. And I think that Carr is going to throw the ball all over the yard, and he's going to have a lot by halftime. So
I wish I could find like an Aeneas Williams touchdown or something. That's something I'd love to see a market on, because I think one of those running backs will sneak in a fourth quarter touchdown.
One of the reserves, you think?
One of the reserves. I'm hoping I see a line on it.
Speaking of reserves, this is not an official Vegas sportsbook prop, but how about this one? Over under 2.5 offensive series for Kenny Minchey.
I'll take the over. I think this is actually a really good, fun, hypothetical line. But I anticipate Minchey being out there for the entire fourth quarter. So I think that gets you right around maybe 2 or 3, full possessions, full drives. And the thing is, too, is what I like about Marcus Freeman is it's not like they're just in there to hand the ball off. Like, he wants Kenny Minchey to get in there.
Yeah.
He's going to run the offense. They're going to get some tape. They're going to develop. So I fully expect them, even though, Minchey's going to be in there, they're going to be full steam ahead.
Robin says way over. USMA 87 says over, I hope. I mean, now, again, we're talking about 2.5 offensive series for Kenny Minchey. Fourth quarter, like, that's around 3 series, 3, maybe 4 series. You're talking about the fourth quarter, depending on, like how, what
the defense does.
Like. So, yeah. So, so then the question becomes, if you're that confident that he's going to go over 2.5 offensive series, how early is he going to be in? I don't think this looks like Purdue last year, like completely out of hand by halftime, but who knows? Like, crazier things have happened. But I would be over on that as well. From Terry the other day in the mailbag, we didn't get this one in, Terry/Mitch. How many touchdowns will Minchey have Saturday?
I think Minchey gets 1 passing touchdown, and I think the rest of the touchdowns will be handled by the reserve running backs.
That's what I think as well. I think he'll account for 1, whether it's rushing or passing, and then, like you said, those backup running backs are going to play a big part in there as well. So I'm good with 1 for Minchey.
So I want to before we get into these last couple ones, I want to take you down the tour of the latest of Jesse's bad beats in sports betting. So last night I had a really, really nice parlay put together. Last thing I needed was Lamar Jackson for rushing yards. And this one's on me at the end of the day. So, because he's coming off the hamstring, should have been more cautious about it. But
they were just to let him throw the ball as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. So he hit this alt line that I took, though, and all of my parlays were good. I had 3 of them, and I needed him to get it. And he's at 16 of 15 yards. They take 2 kneel downs to end the game. And he loses. He goes 14 yards instead of 16. And I'm watching all my bets. I'm like, oh, yes, I'm good. And then I see those last 2 kneel downs at the end. I was like, I was sitting there. I was like, okay, 1 kneel down should be fine. Like, I can take that one. But I don't did 2 of them.
I don't understand why the NFL for kneel downs just doesn't just credit it as a team rush. instead of, to the individual player. I don't
And
get
that's where my complaint was. But again, I was like, I should have just not even touched it because
Yep.
it was, coming off
Right
injury.
there.
But
Yep.
the thing is he can't help himself. I was hoping for a couple, collapsed pockets. I thought Miami would be way more competitive than what they were, and
Good
none
luck
of those
with that.
things really happened. So I wanted everyone to share that pain with me.
All right. Here's some Notre Dame receiving props. Which of these are you most confident in an over? Faison at 54.5 receiving yards, Fields 38.5, Pauling 38.5, Raridan 37.5. Who are you most confident in an over? Mine personally, see, Faison's is a little bit higher because of his success lately, but he's still probably the one that I am most confident in.
Really, I'm most confident in Malachi Fields. I think that you talk about someone hitting their line, he might hit that line in the first quarter.
That's true. Like with the kind of
And
secondary
it's only 38.5, like that's
I've
like,
been confident in him in recent games, and it hasn't paid off at all. It's been,
but I think that's why he's due for one. I feel like we haven't
True.
seen some of that. My rankings in this, just like 1 through 4, least confident to most confident. 1, most confident in Fields. I'd go 2, Pauling, 3, Faison, and I'm actually least confident in Raridan.
Yeah.
I think that the wide receivers are just going to absolutely – I would probably take the over on all 3 wide receivers. Again, I just think that they're going to air the ball out. Greathouse is going to be out. So early on, it's just going to be a small rotation of guys. And then, hopefully by the time Kenny Minchie comes in, we'll see some more of those reserve wide receivers. But with Greathouse out, I mean, it's just going to be Faison, Fields, Pauling nonstop until halftime at least.
Scale of 1 to 10. What's your confidence that Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price go over on all 3 of these? For Love, 113.5 rushing, 24.5 receiving. Price, 84.5 rushing. What's your confidence both of those guys hit overs on all 3?
I'm actually going to put this at a 3 out of 10, and I think that none of these are going to happen. I'm treading on the under on all of these, and I think in a game like this, again, I'm hypothetically thinking here that Boston College overloads the box, and I just think that Notre Dame's not going to force feed. This isn't a game where you have to force feed Love in the passing game. You have plenty of other wide receivers and options that can get it done. Like, I don't think they're going to exert Jeremiah Love in this game just to exert him. You know what I mean? It's not going to be one of those games like USC, Arkansas, Texas A&M, Miami, where like he has a very, very heavy workload. I think the workload is going to be very well distributed. And again, like I don't anticipate seeing him the entire fourth quarter.
I think I am most confident in Love in the receiving total. I like that 24.5 yards because of kind of how we think that Boston College's defense will approach this. I think that they're going to find ways to make sure that Love gets touches. But I am also, like, if I rank these, I would go Love's receiving yards of 24.5, Price's rushing yards of 84.5, and then Love's 113.5 would be third. I think Price has like a couple big runs in him, and I think he's got a really good chance to hit that. So I still like that number for him. But like my confidence in all 3 would probably be a 2 to answer that question. Yes.
Back to the original topic.
Yep. We'll finish the first hour, talk a little bit about Notre Dame women's basketball's exhibition win last night. They were shorthanded a couple players. We'll talk about that, how they looked against Purdue Northwest with the season opener coming up next week. And we've got more Notre Dame football talk coming up in hour number 2 when we hit rapid fire. That is just a few minutes away. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding down hour number one, Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com with Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. Notre Dame women's basketball played their one and only exhibition game last night and just hammered poor Purdue Northwest 119-54. Hannah Hidalgo ended up with 39 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 steals. Kassan Prosper, 27 points, 10 rebounds, 7 steals. She blocked 3 starts. There were a couple of points in the game in the second half where Hannah Hidalgo had more points by herself than what Purdue Northwest had, Jess. It was a freight train is what it was.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the box score, that's what it looks like. But I mean, what did Purdue Northwest think was going to happen here? You know what you're signing up for in some of these exhibition games. Oof, that was a tough word for me. But I still think that there was a lot that came out of it. What's eye-popping to me is you almost had 2 players get a triple-double with steals. That's kind of insane. And I think that's a good thing as well, because it showed that, they were taking the defense seriously. It wasn't just all about offense and scoring points. They wanted to play, good defense. And that's obviously a big part of Hannah Hidalgo's game. So unfortunate that some of those transfers couldn't, get in there because you want to see them. But
yeah, that was the downside. Malaya Coles, the forward from Wake Forest, and Ayanna Moore, the guard from Vanderbilt, they both missed the game with what they said were minor leg injuries. So hopefully they're going to be back and ready to go for the season opener next week against Fairleigh Dickinson. But that's also, like, when you look at the fact that they scored 119 points and they didn't have 2 of their better transfer players. I mean, Moore, the Vanderbilt guard, she averaged double figures in all 3 of her seasons at Vanderbilt, and Coles, not quite the same score, but gives them really good front court presence, and they still dominated the boards. Now, again, you're talking about, an ACC team versus a Division II team, but I thought it was a really good, really impressive first night, especially when Niele Ivey, because of how thin they were, and this is my biggest concern. I think it's probably her biggest concern as well. They're already very thin. And then you start off and you had 2 players out last night, but she was mixing in. Technically, they're not walk-ons anymore because of the whole, rev sharing and all that different stuff. But players who started off, Lucy Jensen, Bella Terrani, and Jordan Smith, the newcomer, she transferred over from Holy Cross across the street over there. She's from Penn High School as well. They all saw considerable minutes last night. They still scored 119 points. And Kelly Radigan looked really good coming back from Loyola, Maryland, the South Bend St. Joe all-time leading scorer.
Yeah, so, I put together kind of a list here of some questions. You already
don't have a ton of time, so you better get some off here real quick.
You took one of them by saying, kind of talking about the concerns, so we can already get rid of that one. I guess I have maybe 2 big ones left. What made you feel most excited for Notre Dame women's basketball after watching last night's game?
I think, again, the fact that you can score 119 points and not be close to, your like full strength. But Kassan Prosper, again, it's like she had a great night, like she was stuffing, like she was playing inside, she was playing outside, and really showed a lot of the versatility. She's going to be really key for them because of the lack of front court depth. With her size, the fact that she can play any of the 5 positions, she's going to be really key. And I think we started to see some of that last night. So I think a really good sign for her to throw up 27 and 10. And as you said, get close to a triple double when you throw in the 3 steals and then add in the blocks as well. So that was a big one because they're going to need a lot from Cass this season if they're going to be successful.
Well, look at that. You answered the question that I cut out because I was going to say what element can Cass Prosper provide to the team this season. So you've already hit 3 of 4 questions. The last question I want to ask here is, outside of the obvious of scoring points, what does Notre Dame women's basketball need most out of Hannah Hidalgo this season?
I think so. You're saying outside of scoring?
Yeah, we all know she could score points. She was like I'm pretty sure was close to being like the national scoring title leader last year. So and I think led the ACC in points at the end of the year too. So I think the points are a given. She's going to get hers, probably be close to 30 points per game when it's all said and done. But what do they need out of her outside of just scoring a bunch of points? I guess
I think it's probably the disruptiveness in the open court with her defense, because they've always been a team that focuses on defense, but I think that it's going to be even more so this year in the fact that she's the two-time reigning ACC Defensive Player of the Year, and we saw some of that, kind of court havoc from her. She had 6 steals herself she and Prosper combined for 13 steals between them, and I think that's going to be a big thing, is just the disruptiveness from Hannah Hidalgo as a defensive player, because they're going to need a lot of that havoc, I think, to generate some of their offense, so they can get that and get out and run.
All right.
Good questions. Good questions.
I feel like I was right on time too.
You were. Let's wrap up the first hour with that. Notre Dame women's basketball opens up the regular season next Wednesday, 7 o'clock on the Notre Dame Radio Network when they host Fairleigh Dickinson. Take a time out for the top of the hour. Rapid fire coming up in hour number 2, and it is going to be rapido when Bobby Hensley comes in. You won't want to miss it. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. The gang's all here. Hour number 2, Budweiser's weekday sports beat and rapid fire. Bobby, welcome.
It's good to be here. Jesse, I haven't seen you in a while.
Man, been a long time. I didn't know you owned a Notre Dame hat.
Oh, yeah. I've been wearing all Notre Dame stuff since you've been gone.
No, you've been wearing it since Brian Kelly dressed you down. How many years ago?
Oh, it was right after the South Florida game. Whatever it was, we got to do an interview the next day, and I had a Ball State polo on, and I put a microphone on him, and he wanted me fired.
Bobby used to work for, I don't know who exactly, you would say, like you were part of the production crew for the coaches show. Is that maybe the best way to term it?
Yeah, editor, and helped out with this stuff. But
Bobby made the mistake of wearing a Ball State shirt, his alma mater, and Brian Kelly dressed him down and ripped him a new one, and that's why Bobby is who he is today.
It changed my path of life for sure that day. Not for the better. Now I'm here with you guys. So,
all right. Well, we only have so much time, so let's jump into this. Notre Dame and BC used to play pretty regularly, but the series has been much more intermittent since Notre Dame entered into that ACC scheduling agreement several years back. Marcus Freeman asked yesterday about his thoughts on the rivalry between the two programs.
The Holy War. Coach Wash has really educated myself and the team on, what the view was when he was at Boston College. The one thing that's unique about this rivalry is it's not played every year, and that's probably why it's not talked about enough. But there's history. It's a great opportunity and a great challenge, and so we're embracing the Holy War. We're embracing this rivalry, and as much as it is for us, like the opportunity to achieve team glory together, and that's represented by winning this game and the trophy. And so it's definitely important to this football program and this university.
And of course, just to clarify for anybody who might not have recognized it, he referenced Coach Wash, and he's talking about, of course, Irish defensive line coach Al Washington, who his alma mater is Boston College. And a couple of years ago, before Bill O'Brien got the head coaching job, it came down to him and O'Brien for getting that job. So Freeman leaned on him a little bit for, like some of the rivalry. Where does this game fall on the rivalry scale for you guys?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit yesterday with Vince, and I told him, like, I'm a little down on the game this year, and I want to feel, more excited about it because, I like that Marcus Freeman shares the same passion that I do. This is a trophy game, like this game means if there is a trophy involved, the game means something. Like, you don't just have a trophy between two teams for no reason.
Oh, you muted yourself. You muted yourself. Go ahead, Bobby.
Something he's going to use to get his team pretty fired up for this week.
I think you fired yourself up so much that you smacked your mute button.
Yeah, I think you got the volume meter going up there too. This rivalry to me, I know it has a trophy to it. Just like Jesse said, you want to win any trophy game. It's not a rivalry to me when it can be a trap game. Like, you shouldn't have to worry about a rivalry game being a trap game. And yeah, I'm going back all the way to 93, but that Boston College team was better than people give them credit for.
See, I think that was more trap game back then than rivalry. I think that to me. No, and I realize because it, Leahy and coaching both schools, and so there was at least some bits of rivalry, but it felt like that was really, Coughlin and kind of the launching point for the modern rivalry. It felt like for me between the two schools.
The part that I like about it being a rivalry is the Holy War aspect of it, and they're religious based institutions, and that's cool. To me, though, we've gone over this before. It's like, oh, how much does the USC rivalry mean? Oh, how much would it mean if Michigan was on the schedule? Mm-hmm. Oh, how much would Boston College is barely even on the list? And I think giving it a trophy is what keeps it as a rivalry, because otherwise they would be just a normal rotation team in the ACC matchups that they have to take.
Yeah, and it's really kind of the same. It's really no more, no less, I don't think, than Miami where it is right now. And I realize, there's not a trophy on the line there. And back at the start of the season, I was on a show in the East Coast, and there were some Notre Dame fans on there, and they were like, I consider Miami a rival. And say, how can you consider them a rival when you barely play them? You know, you've played them a handful of times in the last 30 years, and it's a little bit more frequently with Boston College, but you know, where you're at the point where you're not playing them every year, and when you have played them, as Notre Dame, you've whooped them pretty soundly, including 44-0 the last time they came here in that snow game a few years back. So, yeah, I mean, it's like you want to keep those trophies and all that kind of stuff. To me, like the true rivals are USC, Michigan, and everybody else. And I kind of put this BC on, like, I definitely put it above Stanford, but I put it more on par with probably like a Michigan State and Purdue. I would slot it into that tier, I think.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think too. I was just going to say, it reminds me of the Purdue matchup. You want to make that a rival, but not every game is a rivalry, and that's okay. You just got to go and play your opponents. But having Boston College on the schedule is only nice here and there. I don't need it every year. That's one of the rivals that we could rotate for the other matchups, I think.
Man, Tommy is coming hard at Bobby in the YouTube chat here tonight. He says he hates agreeing with you after he was booing your entrance into the show tonight. I mean, down and out, but statistically average podcast in the YouTube. That is the handle of this, down and out, but statistically average podcast. Says, excited to see this game and to enjoy it with friends this weekend. Go Irish, beat BC. Do you guys think we will see this team be able to ascend to the point where they could beat Ohio State? Hypothetical. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I actually thought about this one a good amount because this also coincides to, you know, I think a show that you put, or a question you put in the rundown for today's show. I think that Notre Dame is right on the cusp of being elite. And I think what makes them more elite than last season is their offense can come at a team like Ohio State in multiple directions. I think Ohio State was really comfortable with shutting down Notre Dame's run last year and saying, all right, Riley Leonard, what are you going to do about it, right? And if they did that again this year, CJ Carr would say, okay, here's what I'm going to do about it, and he'd throw the ball all over the field. But then what gives me pause of, you know, being completely elite is obviously where their defense is at. I don't know if their defense could go toe-to-toe, but their offense could make up for it. Unlike last season, you know, like that's the thing is like the offense could make up for that gap because I think it's better than last season, but is it enough because of how much the defense has maybe declined this season? So I think they're right on the edge. I think when you're talking about elite teams in the country, Notre Dame definitely belongs in that conversation.
Which makes them a playoff team, so they would eventually get down to playing Ohio State, hopefully. I think last year at the same time, if you were to ask how elite was Notre Dame, could they beat Ohio State, you'd have, or the number one team, that you would have the same issue, like, well, they belong in the conversation. But I think it's wonderful to watch how Marcus Freeman every year makes his teams better as the year goes on.
Yeah.
I'm not used to that as a Notre Dame fan. It seems like a lot of times they were getting worse as the season went on and they'd get tripped up at the end. So to say that they could beat Ohio State in January, I think absolutely they're in that conversation. I think that college football as a whole has so much parity. You go through a playoff where there's so many more games that's going to wear you down, that if Notre Dame continues to get better through all of that, I think they absolutely would be in a ball game with Ohio State. Plus, I mean, Ohio State and Texas had a close game, and that Texas team isn't what people thought it was going to be. So
No.
Ohio State looks vulnerable a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of where Ohio State is right now. That, you know, it's a little bit like Oregon beating Penn State. That was supposed to be Oregon's signature win, but how good does that look based on what Penn State has become since then? And, you know, ditto with Ohio State, other than Texas, who has proven to be pretty average, and their quarterback has not been anywhere close to what everyone thought that he was going to be. And Bobby follows Texas fairly closely, so he, you know, like he can even speak to that even more, you know, like how impressive is that win? And outside of that, Ohio State so far doesn't have another signature win like that. And they wouldn't even, you know, like if they play Indiana, it wouldn't even be until the Big Ten championship game. So I think that, you know, the interesting thing about Notre Dame and Ohio State this year is it would be strength on strength. It would be Notre Dame's offense against Ohio State's defense. And that would be, you know, like I wouldn't be as concerned, even though obviously Ohio State has some playmakers. We know that because they always do, but I wouldn't be as concerned with Notre Dame's defense against Ohio State's offense compared to, say, USC or even Arkansas. Because, again, like we keep coming back to Arkansas and look at what they've done in virtually every game aside from the game that they played against Notre Dame where they only scored 13 points and were held well below their averages. But I do think we're all going to kind of have this concern about Notre Dame's defense every week just because it's always going to be in the back of our mind what happened in those first two games of the season. But the question is, yes, I think that they have every right to think that they could, be in a game and win a game in a head-to-head matchup with Ohio State this year.
I don't even know if Ohio State would be the scariest opponent that's out there.
Right.
So I understand the question, but yeah, they can be in there.
Going back to the rivalry question, Radar 32,700 says, what about Navy as a recurring rival matchup? I mean, I get it. They play them every year. So to some extent it's a rivalry, but don't we look at that more as the mutual respect game than a rivalry game? Isn't that kind of what that is?
Are you trying to discredit the Rip Miller Trophy?
Oh my God.
I love it.
If he isn't, I will.
Navy means more to me than the Holy War.
All right. I'm in on that. I would be in on that.
That's like you were going through your tiers. Navy means more than the Holy War.
I kind of forgot about Navy, in terms of those tiers. I would put, especially now since they don't, since Notre Dame doesn't play Purdue or Michigan State or Boston College regularly, I think you have to put Navy in that next tier.
Yep.
They're probably tier 2 by themselves.
Yep.
USC, Michigan at the top in tier 1, Navy tier 2, and then those other teams are tier 3, and then Stanford is tier 8.
If they brought back Michigan State every year, I'd love that, and I'd put them on that Navy tier, I think, and maybe slightly above.
Yeah, I
love that trophy, baby, the big old megaphone.
Yeah,
and that's going back to the 60s, and they played the best game ever played, ended in a tie. But yeah, Navy, I think, is more of a rival than Boston College just because of the consistency and because of what it means behind the scenes. Obviously, it's a respect game, and you're not putting a bulletin board material. And it's also nice that Notre Dame usually wins that game, so it's another win that you can add to your schedule.
Fill in the blank. Style points mean blank for Notre Dame.
They mean everything for Notre Dame. With a team that's got 2 losses. And I said this yesterday to Vince on the show. I think if they did, when the committee comes out with their first rankings and nothing major happens in front of Notre Dame this weekend, Notre Dame would be the first team out. So they need these style points. They need people, everyone in the country to say, wow, Notre Dame, threw for 300, ran for 200 and beat Boston College 60-3. That's what they need right now. So I think style points for a 2-loss team like Notre Dame mean absolutely everything when you're going to be a bubble team, to finish out the season here.
I kind of hate sharing notes with somebody wearing a Cowboys hat, but everything I think is the only answer you can put for that, because what did Sean just talk about? He talked about the Arkansas, what they've done in their other games, but Notre Dame looks so good against them. So we're already relying on them to validate kind of where they're at in the rankings. So it's everything. That's all they got. I mean, you got to get the win, but you got to look good doing it, because if you just barely squeak by some of these games, then you're not going to move up in the polls and you will be left out. So, and then you get to comparing teams that have played other teams and mutual opponents. That's all they got.
And that's, this is why, when you hear the criticism of Notre Dame and their schedules, this is one of the things that is actually a plus for Notre Dame. When it comes to the end of the season, when their resume is being compared to other, programs, other teams that they're in the running for this with, because they have all these cross checks. They've played 2 SEC teams this year. So you can say, okay, well, what did Texas A&M do against these other teams that are in the conversation? What did Arkansas do against these other teams that are in the conversation? And again, Arkansas has scored a lot of points against an Ole Miss team, for example, and some of these other teams. Then you've got Miami and these ACC teams, and you've got USC and the Big Ten teams. So there's all these cross references that Notre Dame has so that you can compare competition with how they played against other teams that are going to be in the conversation for these. So Style points, since you both said everything, I'll just go everything, everywhere, all at once. That's what my answer will be. Style points for Notre Dame. They absolutely have to have them. They've got to keep looking good now. They have no room, for sputtering here in these last 5 games. They've got to keep making.
You just can't give anyone second thought. Like you can't give them that second. Like when you think about Notre Dame, it just needs to be yes, and there needs to be no buts. Like just this consensus domination is all they need to do.
Consensus domination. I like that.
We're going to take our last break and then back to wrap up rapid fire and the show. We've got a few minutes to go here still. We'll have a little bit more than 10 minutes to go before we wrap things up. When we come back, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding down Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Rapid fire. Sean Stiers, Jesse Stiers, Bobby Hensley. Fill in the blank. Game 6 of the World Series is tonight on Fox. The Fox #1 baseball broadcast team of Joe Davis and John Smoltz is blank.
A big old yawn. Give me back Joe Buck. You know I do not like John Smoltz. Like if there's someone I do not like to listen to, it is John Smoltz. So first and foremost, let's get John Smoltz out of there. But I'm missing Buck. I know a lot of people complain about Buck. I actually think Buck's better at baseball than he is football at the end of the day. And if you ask any of the Cleveland people, they absolutely despise Buck because they think he's the reason why Chicago came back and won that World Series in 2016. So I just think they're incredibly boring. And I'm having withdrawals of Joe Buck.
Yeah, I agree with the Smoltz stuff. He doesn't add anything to the broadcast for me.
He's like a Vince on the mic calling a baseball game.
Oh, man.
Wow.
What a shot at Vince.
I don't even know what to do with that one. That one, if he hears that, that's going to hurt him. But I don't know what Smoltz ever, what did he do to achieve that job? And what sucks about baseball
he went to the World Series a few times. He won a World Series.
I understand his career, but I'm saying he hasn't been the announcer with the voice that's just been something that's special.
Oh, that's the thing.
We must tune in because he's part of it, or it by just right away and I'm lucky to hear a Smoltz game.
He's got the personality of a blind moth in a closet. It's bad. There is, and the two of them together, they sound like two guys just basically mumbling 99%.
Yes.
I sit there and I try to focus and I don't absorb anything that they're saying because there's no life in that booth. There's no fun in the booth. And I've said it before, if you're going to have Smoltz, if you're dead set that for some reason you need John Smoltz in there, who basically just wants to talk about pitch to pitch and, curveballs and four-seamers and whatever else. And there's much more. Neither one of them tells stories very well. I know a lot of people didn't like Tim McCarver, but Tim McCarver had his own kind of, sound and his own kind of levity, and he could weave in good stories to the game. There are a lot of others as well. I mean, and from the play-by-play side, whether it was Joe Buck, Sean McDonough before that, and guys like Vin Scully, have called World Series in my lifetime as well. And it's these guys, the thing about, I heard some guys complaining specifically about Joe Davis, and the thing about Joe Davis is he is so mundane on the pitch to pitch, literal play-by-play type stuff. But then he goes he spikes. He goes through the roof when it comes, for the big plays and the big moments and the highlight type stuff. And I heard these guys the other day talking about you can't even understand what he's saying when he gets excited because his audio gets so overmodulated. And I think it's because he talks at such a low level, play to play, that they have to jack up his audio sound, so that you can actually hear him. And then when he actually does get excited, it overmodulates everything. And it's just not a good #1 booth by any means. I think Adam Amin is better.
He's a World Series booth.
Yeah. He's also on Fox. They need more personality from that analyst. I've said this before, and Bobby, you were just telling me during the break that you've got the Major League Baseball package, and I do too. I think you could get the New York Mets crew of Gary Cohen, Keith Hernandez, and Ron Darling, and they would be a great national team together. It's a 3-man booth. There's a lot of life, a lot of personality.
Well, even the World Series, I'll be honest, most of it I've had on the radio with the Sciambi and Mendoza and Eduardo Perez, and I think they're kind of fun to listen to. They give you more. The way they interact, and it's not like you feel like your grandpa's reading a book to you like Smoltz is. I miss they don't have enough reps during the year either. The Fox should have the Sunday night game of the week like ESPN used to, John Miller and Joe Morgan, all those kind of old names. Now it's oh yeah, we have the World Series. Let's dust off our crew that we haven't really promoted or used all year and see what we got.
To me, there's no reason it needs to be Smoltz and Smoltz alone in there. Craig D makes a good comparison. He says Smoltz is the Jason Garrett of baseball. I think that's not bad. Josh says TBS has better announcers. I think Brian Anderson is better than Joe Davis. personally. But there needs to be, like, you can't have two flatline guys. You've got to have someone with more personality in there. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing him, like, bring Harold Reynolds in and just add him to the booth so that because like Reynolds, he's done games before. You could throw him in there. He works for, MLB Network, so you don't have to worry about competing networks and stuff like that. And I think that he would bring both good insight and good life to that booth, because they've got to do something to kind of kickstart it a little bit.
Well, even Vescursion used to do baseball games.
Yeah.
And he'd be a good ad because at least he's got that dynamic presentation.
He's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
But there are people who feel different kinds of ways about him. Did you bring up Benetti? Like, Benetti is another good one. He works for Fox. I think that he would be good.
Yeah, he's good at everything he does. He's good at interaction and keeping up with the feeds online, and he interacts with people. He makes everything fun, but the World Series might be too much for him because he's so much about antics and, I'm going to try this milkshake and see what I think of it, which I enjoy. During the season, I think he's great.
I don't mind that. I don't mind that.
In the World Series, it's like, well, I don't know, maybe that's why they do put Smoltz on and let the game be the catalyst for everything, and just he's a part of it. But I feel like if he had to reapply for his job every year, that Smoltz wouldn't get it. It's just the merit of him always being in there that brings him back.
You got to keep people interested, and it's just hard for me to stay focused on that broadcast with those two guys.
I'll say this, and that this is going to take a lot out of me. I'd rather listen to Joe Davis and Greg Olson than Joe Davis and John Smoltz.
Ooh, whoa, man.
That's
Jesse, not a big Greg Olson fan. So
he's one of the best tight end announcers we got.
Since the passing of Indianapolis Colts owner Jim Irsay, his daughters are now in charge of the Colts, and one of them, Carly Irsay Gordon, has garnered a lot of attention for wearing a headset on the sidelines to listen to Colts head coach Shane Steichen and his staff during games. Here is how she explains her intent in doing that.
Learn more about this. I need to be able to say, is this person full of BS? Do they even know what they're talking about? And I think one of the things that being on the headset has really helped me learn is, to the question earlier, it's such a complex organism, a football team, and how it operates. And on game day, and you could say, that person ran that route wrong. When you learn to find, someone tagged the wrong wide receiver, and it wasn't really the player's fault. It was the person that called it. So, and it's never, I think that's been a very valuable, because it also helps us be able to know, where do we need to make tweaks? What resources do we need? What do we need to fix? So much of it comes down to just how we operate and how things work. And the headsets are really, I would suggest it for anyone else that has to pay coaches and GMs millions and millions of dollars. It helps you make a less expensive mistake potentially.
All right, so there is Carly Irsay Gordon explaining why she wears the headset on the sideline during games. Do you guys buy or sell that?
Yeah, I'll be short and sweet with this one. I absolutely buy it. And I think the logic makes 100% sense because, you're in a position of power. You have to make a lot of important decisions, a lot of, financially dependent decisions. And every time something goes wrong, majority of the time it's going to be, the coach is going to say, the wide receiver didn't run the right route. The wide receiver is going to say, the coach didn't call the right play and put me in the best spot. So it's hard for people to, I think, take accountability, right? And so when you have to kind of problem solve or, figure out where the problem is, it makes sense to me. Like you're in on everything. You see how, things are being communicated, what's being called, and then how, the result of the play, and then you can diagnose what went wrong.
So basically you're coming at it from a business standpoint of her protecting her investment.
Yeah, but also just understanding like there's always going to be drama, and you want to be in that situation as much as possible to figure out what the cause or the root is of the issue. So
like Dallas Cowboys, if Jerry Jones is wearing a headset, you wouldn't have a problem with that.
Well, he already wears a headset every day of the week, so it's just like
I'm gonna say. I mean, I think he's in the he's in the coaches meetings. He's doing more than just the sidelines.
I saw something today. Schottenheimer talks to him every Monday for like 2 hours, and then every Friday for at least an hour. So that's a lot of time throughout the season.
A lot of FaceTime.
I think the thing with with her is like she already has a very unique look, and then when you put on the headset and she's down there and the visual, because it's not just the headset, she's also got up the notepad and she's taking notes during the game, and like it feels like she could accomplish a lot of this same stuff since she's wearing the headset by just sitting up in her booth without being 15 feet from the coach with a headset and taking notes while all this, like, it feels like that could be a distraction. Like the note taking, it's like everything that you do and you're side eyeing and you're seeing your owner, your boss over here taking notes, when every little thing happens. I get what she's saying and why she does it, but it feels like it could be accomplished in a little bit more discreet way.
See, I'm kind of indifferent on it right now because she inherited the team literally. In a few years, if it's her own people in there, then why are you second guessing your own investment is why I would sell on it.
Sure.
Because you're saying that you don't trust the coach, you want to be a part of everything. And like, I guess I do want to.
You're basically saying come game day, just let it rip. Like it is what it is.
Yeah.
But when she gets her own people in, it'll be different. Right now, maybe she's evaluating to see what changes she needs to make.
Yeah. I mean, and Tommy,
exactly. Oh, we said the same thing. That's 3.
Tommy is saying micromanagement. And the question is, how much of this is she just, putting in the back of her mind, chalking it up to whatever, and how much of it is she actually inserting, Jerry Jones type control over different stuff because she gets this information. Notre Dame Boston College coming up tomorrow, 3:30 kickoff here on Sports Radio WSBT and the Notre Dame Radio Network. Game day show live from 11 to 2:30 Eastern time. This week's guests, former Notre Dame players Capron Lewis Moore, Josh Lugg, and Mark Edwards. We've got Notre Dame hockey on the way. We are about 5 minutes away from the pregame show, and the puck is scheduled to drop at 7 o'clock tonight. Bobby Hensley, enjoyed it as always. Jesse Stiers, enjoyed it as always. Have a safe Halloween. Be careful. Remember, it is Halloween, so those kids might be running around out there. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the game. We'll talk to you Monday. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.